Good morning. I apologise for the delay in my morning roundup. I had a bit of celebration with my husband last night about a business opportunity that came my way. Very excited about it. Can't talk about it, but very excited about it. So, anyway, let's get on with some news. First up, I want to talk a bit about Africa. There's a number of things that are going on in Africa. We had this yesterday. This was Niger scrapping any military cooperation with France, but then France came back and said that they don't acknowledge that because they don't consider the people to be, legal representatives because they overthrew the government. They have said they have noted this, but that they're not going to take it seriously. We've got a lot of information coming through from Nigeria. The Nigerian government seems obsessed with the idea of sending troops into Niger. We have people on the border of Niger in Nigeria talking about the amassing of troops and also the capitulation of troops to Niger who are more comfortable fighting with Niger for their own land than actually fighting against Nigerians who just want their own land back. So it's caused a bit of a divide with Nigeria, and that is for two reasons. Partly, it is just the reality for Nigerians that these are people that just want control of their own territory. They aren't being aggressive. They aren't trying to force anything on France. They're not saying they're going to attack anyone. They literally just want to control their own imports, exports, and currency. That is a very hard thing for a number of Nigerians to get on board with going to war for. Secondly, they're angry that this highlights the state of their own government and the fact that their own governmental bodies are more prepared to fight for the West than they are their own brothers. Um, and there's actually been some arguments within the Nigerian parliament about this as well, because there is not by no means a cohesion here. The other issue is that there is a river that runs through Niger into Nigeria, and Nigeria has dammed that river with a hydro dam. Now, if the idea is that Nigeria has dammed the river and they provide electricity to Niger. Now, as part of ECOWAS, which is the group of African countries that are backed by France who have stood up against this coup, um, as part of ECOWAS's attack on Niger, they have cut electricity to Niger. Now, in doing this, they leave Nigerians vulnerable because if Niger chooses to, Niger can dam the river themselves. And if they do that, Nigeria loses the ability to have its own power. Now, obviously, things are very, very tense. Algeria has said they'll send 48,000 troops into Niger. There are definitely Wagner troops in Niger. The French don't seem to be backing down. The Americans are making incredibly um, hypocritical statements about not backing coups, even though they've been funding the one in Ukraine for the last 9 years. And essentially, what we're starting to see is perhaps the beginning of brother versus brother. People in the Congo are fighting against UN peace troops. This is the other thing very much to note here, as we saw in Mali, and I discussed at length in the expose I did on Niger, Ukraine, and French intelligence. As we've seen in Mali, the French Foreign Legion has said, we'll leave, but only if the UN peacekeepers have come in. And they've done exactly the same job. And in some instances, have been the same people with a uniform change. So the UN peacekeepers are simply a subsidiary of the French Foreign Legion, or so it seems. And these guys are in Congo, and all they have done is facilitated the low human rights and the theft of oil, gold, natural resources from Congo. Now, the other thing to bear in mind is that there is a pipeline that runs through Niger from Nigeria, and it serves to supplement gas to Europe, and without that, Europe is screwed because it's already allowed the Americans to blow up Nord Stream. So it's unlikely that Niger is going to be comfortable with that pipeline running through its territory if the French decide to bomb Niger. So it is more important now than ever that we actually have some skilled diplomats dealing with the situation in a way that they should. When a country is saying we need to be able to run our own country, we need to decide what democracy looks like, we need to decide how things are done. It is not a part of the West to simply turn around and say, no, we're going to bomb you into oblivion. Those days are gone. And what is at stake here is actually the well-being and the ability to survive of every person in Europe, particularly in France. If you look at the French inflation figures, they are far lower than they have been in any other European country, and that is because the French government has basically has basically not allowed energy companies to take the piss. And the reason that they've been able to do that is because the energy companies make vast amounts of money in France because they not only take energy from places like Niger in the form of uranium, in the form of oil and gas, but they also sell those products on to other European countries. So they're able to subsidize the French. Otherwise, in Africa, we have Nigeria launching a new power plant, and this is alongside China. This is a gas-fired power plant. This is what Nigerians should be looking to doing, not starting wars with their neighbours. Also from Nigeria here, Ethiopia is to launch a Nigerian airline in October. You know, Nigeria seems to be doing very well, seems to be playing with their neighbours, seems to be developing. Why they are allowing themselves, and by this I mean the government, to fall into this trap of the French is beyond me, because there is so much good that's happening in Nigeria alongside all of this. There's absolutely no reason or benefit to Nigerians for these attacks on Niger. The UN Human Rights Chief has closed his office in Uganda. I regret that our office in Uganda has to close after 18 years, during which we were able to work closely with civil society. Blah, blah, blah. In February, Uganda's Foreign Affairs Ministry announced that the country would not renew the mandate of the United Nations Human Rights Office, citing the East African country's progress in developing a domestic to monitor rights is the main reason for this. I think that if you look, you will see the human rights, the life expectancy, the birth rate, the basically lived experiences of Ugandans go up exponentially in response to this. Where UN exists, poverty, slavery, and hardship exists, and this is something that, to be honest, only Africa seems to realise at the moment, but I think the rest of the world is going to have to wake up. This one I found quite interesting. The Turkish president has called for Niger's reported halt to commodity exports to France, payback for brutal past. Turkish President Erdogan suggests that the report halted to uranium and gold exports from Niger to France for payback for Paris's colonial era brutality. I mean, yes, but their colonial era brutality has existed right up until now. That's never ever stopped. And it's really, really important that we understand that, because when I speak to people and they say, oh, this isn't about history, it's about now, I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm saying to you, buddy. Like, these people have been enslaved until now by France, and now they are reclaiming their territory back. It's an existential threat for Niger. It's an existential problem, and there is absolutely no way, regardless of how much crap we throw at them, that they are just going to give back their country to being a slave colony because of a bit of a war. There's absolutely no way. It's just going to make us Westerners look even worse and have less ability to trade with this developing, powerful nation. That's what we need to be aware of. Morning. I apologize.